I've never been the kind of guy to think I'd get blindsided by something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 5 years now. We met in college, and for a while everything seemed perfect, at least from my side. She was beautiful, smart, ambitious. We'd talk about our future, get excited about the house we'd buy, the trips we'd take, maybe even start a family soon. I thought we had that kind of connection, trust, loyalty, honesty. Or so I believed. Then I found out I was going to be a dad. Lisa was pregnant, and honestly, I was on cloud nine. I couldn't wait to see her belly grow, to watch her glow with that motherly shine. We had a gender reveal party scheduled, and I was already dreaming about how life was about to change for the better. But as the days went on, I started noticing small, weird things. Her phone ringing at odd hours, her hiding it when I walked into the room, text messages that seemed a little too casual or a little too secretive. I brushed it off, telling myself I was just overthinking that. Maybe she was just nervous or stressed about the pregnancy. Then came the weirdest part. One night I was lying in bed and I realized her phone was on the nightstand, face down. I'd never thought about snooping before, but I was so curious. I reached over, grabbed her phone, and unlocked it with her fingerprint. I wasn't trying to invade her privacy. I just wanted to see if there was anything I should worry about. That's when I saw it. A string of text messages hidden in her messaging app between her and some guy named Brandon. The messages weren't just friendly chatter, they were flirty, a lot of "can't wait to see you," "miss your face," and even some pretty explicit stuff about meeting up. I looked at the timestamps. They'd been going on for weeks, even during the pregnancy. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. How could she do this? How could she cheat on me right before our baby was about to come into the world? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I scroll through more messages, and it's clear this wasn't just some harmless flirtation. They'd seen each other in secret. Maybe even had sex. I found a few pictures, nothing graphic, but enough to tell me that they'd been close. My mind raced. I felt betrayed, humiliated, angry, so many feelings all at once. I was furious at her for lying, for hiding this from me while I was probably trusting her the most. I was devastated that she could be so callous, cheating during my pregnancy. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed awake, staring at her phone, feeling like my whole world was crashing down. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed to plan how. I wasn't about to let her get away with this without some kind of consequence. I had no idea what I was going to say yet, but I knew that once I did, everything was going to change. When morning came, I decided to wait until she went to work. I needed to get my thoughts straight, figure out what I was going to say, how I was going to handle her. But I also knew I couldn't keep this bottled up. That day, I kept staring at her, feeling the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. I looked at her with new eyes, knowing that the woman I married, supposedly the love of my life, had been hiding this secret from me for weeks. The trust I thought we had was shattered, and now I was left with this terrible question. What the hell do I do next? When Lisa left for work that morning, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind kept circling back to those messages, to her lies, to everything I thought I knew about her. I had to be careful, though. I couldn't just yell at her or accuse her without proof, at least not yet. I needed a plan, a way to confront her that would hit her where it hurt. I also knew I had to keep my cool, even if inside I was boiling with rage. I decided to do some digging. I spent the rest of that day researching ways to catch a cheating spouse, trying to figure out if there were any other clues I might have missed. I kept my phone close, logged into her email account, her social media, anything that could give me more insight. I found a few more texts. From Brandon, more than I'd seen the night before. They were talking about meeting up that night, about sneaking away somewhere private. I could see she'd planned to meet him, and that made me feel even more sick. Like I'd been played from the start. Throughout the day, I kept my face neutral when she texted or called. I told myself I was just gathering information, but honestly, I was already preparing for the worst. I knew I couldn't just pretend this was nothing. When she got home, I was already sitting on the couch, phone in hand, trying to act normal. She walked in, looked at me, and immediately started with her usual bitchy attitude, rolling her eyes, snapping at me for no reason, throwing her purse down. That's when I knew she was hiding something. She's the type to lie her way out of anything, to twist the truth just enough to avoid getting caught. "So, how was your day?" I asked, trying to sound casual but with a steady voice. "Fine," she replied, her tone sharp. "Why?" I looked at her and I thought about the messages. I thought about the lies she'd told me. About Brandon, about how she'd insisted she wasn't seeing anyone else, that things with her were just friendly. I didn't buy it anymore. I pushed my phone across the coffee table, showing her the messages I'd found. Her eyes flicked to the screen, then immediately looked away, her face turning red. "You've been cheating on me, Lisa," I said, my voice low but firm. "During my pregnancy, with my brother, no less." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "Oh, please, you're overreacting. That's not what it looks like." "Really? Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. Flirty messages, plans to meet up, pictures. Do you want me to keep going?" She rolled her eyes again like I was some paranoid lunatic. "You're jealous, you're insecure. Brandon's just a friend, it's not what you think." I felt my stomach churn. I'd never seen her so dismissive, so full of crap. She always had a way of lying, twisting everything around her. I could see the lie in her eyes, the way she was trying to deny what was right in front of her. I couldn't believe I had been so blind, so trusting. My heart was pounding and every instinct in me screamed to confront her, to make her admit it. But I knew I had to be smart. I told her I knew she was lying, and I told her she'd better come clean. Her face turned even bitchier and she spat out, "You're crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. You're just paranoid because you're insecure about the baby." That was her go-to line: deny, dismiss, deflect. I saw right through it. She was trying to minimize everything, trying to gaslight me into doubting my own instincts. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I'd always wanted to believe in her, in us. But now I saw her for what she really was: a liar, a cheat, someone who had been hiding her secret from me while I was preparing to be a dad. I couldn't just stand there and let her lie her way out of it. I told her that I knew about Brandon, about everything, and that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I said I needed some time to think, to process what I'd found, and that I'd be staying at my brother's house. For a while, she just sneered and said I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything for no reason. But I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. There was no coming back from this kind of betrayal, not when she was so blatant about her lies, so unapologetic about her cheating. I felt like my world was falling apart, but I also knew I had to do something, even if it meant breaking everything apart. The pain was unbearable, and I wondered how I'd ever look at her the same way again. After I told her I was leaving, she stormed around the house, screaming, calling me all sorts of names: crazy, jealous, insecure, like I was the one at fault for uncovering her lies. Honestly, I didn't care about her crying or shouting. All I could focus on was how she'd lied to me during one of the most vulnerable times of my life: pregnancy, our coming child, a future I'd been dreaming about. It felt like my entire world had been turned upside down in a matter of hours. I'd gone from thinking I had a loving wife to realizing I was married to someone who'd betray me so thoroughly. I packed a bag and headed to my brother's house. I didn't want to stay in that house, not with her anymore. I needed space to breathe, to think, to figure out what's next. Sitting there that night, I kept replaying everything in my head: her sneering, the messages, her lies. It was like seeing her for the first time all over again, but this time I knew I'd never trust her the same way. I was angry, yes, but mostly just heartbroken. I trusted her more than anything, and she had thrown that trust in the trash for some guy named Brandon. The next day, I couldn't even look at her. She kept sending texts, trying to deny everything, acting like I was overreacting. She said I was crazy, that I was jealous and possessive, and that I was ruining everything by accusing her. I just blocked her on my phone for a while. I didn't want to talk to her. I couldn't. I was too hurt, too angry. If I had any hope left, it was that she'd come clean and admit she'd been lying. But I knew better. That's not her style. She'd lie until she was blue in the face. Meanwhile, I reached out to my brother, Mark. I told him everything, not just about the messages, but about how I'd been feeling for weeks: distant, suspicious, betrayed. Mark was furious too. He said he had no idea Lisa was cheating on me, especially not during my pregnancy. That hit me hard. It made me realize how much I'd been blindsided, how much I'd trusted her blindly. I kept thinking about the little boy or girl growing inside her, and I wondered if she'd been cheating on me the entire pregnancy or if it was just recently. Either way, it changed everything. That night I sat alone in my brother's living room feeling numb. I kept asking myself, how did I get here? How did I miss all the signs? How could she lie so convincingly? I thought about her bitchy attitude, her constant dismissiveness, how she'd act like I was some paranoid fool. That made me even angrier. She had played me for a fool all along, and I'd been too trusting, too naive. Now I was left to pick up the pieces of what I thought was a perfect life. I knew I had to decide whether I was going to try to fix this or cut her out entirely. Deep down, I knew there was no fixing what had been broken. That trust, it was shattered beyond repair. But I also wondered if I should sit her down, face her again, and demand the truth. I wanted her to admit everything, to see her squirm for once, to know she couldn't lie her way out of this. But part of me also wanted to destroy her, to make her feel the pain she'd put me through. I'd never felt so conflicted, so betrayed. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I'd have to make a choice soon. Being angry was one thing, but I also knew I had to protect myself and my baby. Whatever I decided, this wasn't going away. This was the start of a whole new chapter, one I'd never expected when I woke up that morning. I just prayed I had the strength to face whatever was coming next. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and endless thoughts. I kept replaying everything in my mind. Her sneers, her lies, her ridiculous excuses about being busy or needing space. She kept insisting she loved me, that Brandon was just a stupid mistake she'd never do again. But honestly, I couldn't buy any of it. The trust was gone, completely shattered. Every time I looked at her, I saw a stranger, someone who'd lied to me during the most important time of my life. I started going through her phone again, even more obsessively. I needed to find out just how deep this thing went. One night, I uncovered a series of messages from Brandon that she hadn't deleted. They were more explicit, more desperate, talking about meeting up again, how much she missed him, how she loved the thrill of sneaking around. It was clear they'd been planning something, and I was furious. How could she have done this to me and still act like I was overreacting? That's when I decided I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I couldn't just confront her anymore either. I needed leverage, proof that I could use if I decided to call her out publicly or even take legal action. I set up a little hidden camera in the living room, just in case she came back and tried to delete more messages or lie her way out again. I knew she'd deny everything, but I wanted concrete evidence, something that would leave no room for doubt. In the meantime, I talked to a lawyer. I didn't plan to get divorced immediately, but I wanted to know my options. How easy was it to get custody of the baby if things went south? Could I do a paternity test early on? My mind raced, feeling like I was caught in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I also started thinking about my own feelings, anger, sadness, betrayal, everything hitting me all at once. I'd always wanted a family, and now I felt like I was about to lose everything I'd ever cared about. Meanwhile, Lisa kept trying to come back, acting all innocent, throwing tantrums, crying fake tears, begging me to forgive her. She insisted Brandon was just a stupid mistake, that she loved me and only wanted to be with me. Honestly, I wanted to believe that, but I couldn't. Not anymore. How could I when she'd lied to my face for so long? Her words felt hollow, empty. I knew she was just trying to manipulate me into staying because she didn't want to lose her comfortable life. I was starting to see through her act. One night, I finally decided to call her bluff. I sent her a message telling her I knew everything, that I had proof of her affair, and that I was done playing her games. I told her I was going to stay with my brother until I figured out what I was going to do. That's when she exploded. She called me every name in the book, accusing me of spying, of stalking her, of trying to ruin her life. She told me I was overreacting, that she'd never cheat on me, that I was just jealous because I couldn't handle her independence and her sex drive. That last one made me laugh bitterly. I couldn't believe she'd actually say that, like I was some obsessed, insecure husband. I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief because I had proof now, and I could finally confront her seriously. Dread because I knew this was only the beginning of a long, painful battle. Part of me wanted to burn everything and walk away, but I also knew I had responsibilities. The baby, my own feelings, my dignity. I'd been humiliated enough, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without a fight. So I decided I'd give her one last chance. If she was willing to come clean, admit her mistakes, and go to therapy or counseling, maybe we could salvage something. But if she refused, I'd take everything I had and walk away. I couldn't keep living in this lie, pretending I didn't know the truth. That night I sat there, staring at her pictures from happier times, feeling my heart break a little more each minute. I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd thrown it all away for some stupid, selfish affair with my brother. How do you ever come back from that? The days that followed were some of the most intense in my life. I kept trying to process everything. How someone I loved and trusted could betray me so completely, especially during such a fragile time. The pregnancy had already been a roller coaster, filled with excitement and hope. Now, it felt like I was spiraling into some dark abyss I couldn't escape from. Every time I looked at Lisa, her smug, bitchy face just made my stomach churn. She kept insisting she was sorry, that she'd never do it again, that Brandon was just some stupid mistake, a one-time thing. But I knew better. I knew she was lying. I could see it in her eyes. She was trying to manipulate me, to gaslight me into thinking it was all just a misunderstanding. I decided I needed to have a serious talk with her. I waited until she came home from work, her typical bitchy attitude already on full display. She looked at me with that sneer she always used when she thought she was right. I was sitting on the couch, my phone in hand, ready to show her the proof I'd been collecting. I told her I knew everything about Brandon, about the messages, about how long this had been going on. Her eyes widened for a split second, then she instantly started with her usual bullshit. "Oh, come on, Mike. I don't know what you're talking about. You're paranoid like always. I don't have time for your games," she snapped. I held up my phone, showing her the messages I'd saved. Her face turned a little paler, her bitchy mask slipping for a moment. "Look at this," I said calmly but firmly. "You've been lying to me about Brandon, and I already know that you've been sneaking around during my pregnancy. How long has this been going on? Since before I even knew I was going to be a dad." She scoffed and crossed her arms. "You're blowing this out of proportion. Brandon's just a friend. You're making a big deal out of nothing. You're just insecure because I'm pregnant and hormonal. Honestly, I don't have time for your accusations." I shook my head, feeling the rage boiling inside me. "No, Lisa, you're the one making a big deal out of this by cheating on me during my pregnancy with my brother. Do you even hear how disgusting that sounds? How can you lie to my face and act like I'm the crazy one?" She rolled her eyes again and shouted, "Stop being such a jealous freak. I don't owe you explanations every time I talk to someone. You're so insecure, you're suffocating me." That was the moment I saw it. The full-blown bitchy attitude, her refusal to admit anything. I felt my hands trembling. I knew I would get through to her with words. I decided I needed to take a different approach. I told her I was done. I'd seen enough and I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I told her I was leaving, that I wasn't going to stay in a marriage where I was lied to and betrayed. She started to scream, calling me every name in the book: crazy, paranoid, jealous, and trying to guilt-trip me into staying. But I had made up my mind. I told her, "If you really loved me, you wouldn't have cheated. You wouldn't have lied to my face during one of the most important times of my life. I'm done, Lisa. I need to think about everything, and I can't do that with you here. I'll be staying at my brother for now." She was furious. She threw things, screaming at the top of her lungs about how I was ruining everything, how I was overreacting, how she'd never do such a thing. But I wasn't listening anymore. I knew my decision was final. I packed a bag, took one last look at her bitchy, lying face, and left. It felt like I was walking away from everything I'd ever wanted: trust, happiness, a family. But I also knew that staying would only make me more miserable, more betrayed. That night I sat in my brother's house trying to hold it together. I kept thinking about the life I thought I had, the future I'd planned. How someone could look me in the eye and lie so effortlessly, even during my pregnancy, just to have some quick sex with my brother. It made me sick. I couldn't sleep. I felt like I was losing my mind, but deep down I knew I had to be strong. I had to figure out what to do next, whether to fight for myself and my child or to just walk away completely. The betrayal cut so deep, I wondered if I'd ever recover from it. The days turned into weeks, and I stayed away from Lisa, trying to piece together my shattered world. Every morning I woke up with a heavy weight in my chest, knowing that the woman I loved, the woman I married, had lied to me during my pregnancy. I couldn't really trust anything anymore. Not her words, not her promises, not even the future I had imagined. I knew. I needed to focus on my unborn child, on getting my head straight, and on figuring out how to move forward from this mess. One night, I finally sat down and had a long, honest talk with myself. I realized that no matter how much pain I was in, I couldn't let her betrayal define me. I had to rebuild, not just for my sake, but for my kid. I decided I would go to court for custody, get a paternity test, and do whatever I needed to do to ensure my child was raised in a stable environment, far away from her lies, her manipulations, and her bitchy demeanor. I wasn't going to let her ruin this part of my life, not anymore. I also started seeing a therapist. Talking through everything helped, even if I still felt angry and betrayed deep down. I learned that I wasn't a fool for trusting her, but I was a victim of her lies. That reality stung, but it also gave me clarity. I realized I deserved better, more honesty, more respect, a relationship based on truth, something she clearly couldn't give. As time went on, I moved forward. I focused on preparing for the baby's arrival, making sure I was emotionally and financially ready. I cut ties with Lisa completely. I blocked her on all social media, changed my phone number, and refused to let her manipulate me anymore. I knew I had done the right thing, even if it hurt like hell. Because at the end of the day, I learned something crucial. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who your real friends and family are. It forces you to see your own strength. Looking back, I don't harbor anger anymore, just a quiet resolve. Lisa's actions revealed her true nature, and I'm glad I found out when I did. I've accepted that some things are beyond repair, and that's okay. Life will go on, and I will be a good father, even if I have to do it alone. I hope that anyone reading this who's going through a similar betrayal knows they're not alone. Trust your instincts, protect yourself and your kids, and never let anyone make you feel like you're less than you are. Because in the end, the only person who can truly rebuild your life is you.